Hello and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We're live from our studios in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. Our top stories this hour. Did you register or are you in line to register? Well, the show that loves to hear from you today will take you across the country for updates as late start, disregard for social distancing and face masks characterize day one of Electoral Commission's voter registration exercise. And as some anticipate a spike in Ghana's coronavirus cases, the cumulative figure rises to 17,741 as number of people killed by the virus remains 112. We take a look at the figures as Ghana Health Service says it has dispatched a team of health practitioners to EC registration centers to prevent any further spread of the virus. And also coming up in this edition, police investigations begin after 10 die and several others are injured in a gory accident on Obuasi-Dunkwa Road in the Ashanti region. We'll be checking on those battling for their lives in hospital and hear from the police so you can follow up if you have a relative who traveled that road between yesterday and today. We're live on digital TV free, also on DSTV 421, Go TV 144. Remember, we stream live on YouTube. You can join us there. Send your thoughts to us on our WhatsApp platform 0540109009. My name is Gifty Andopia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. Welcome to the details of those stories now. The Obuasi Divisional Police Command has launched an investigation into a gory accident which has so far claimed the lives of 10 people on the Obuasi-Dunkwa Road. The accident involving a Sprinter and a Ford bus left several others injured. Adom News' Isaac Nomenyo reports that both vehicles attempted to maneuver sand debris at about 11 p.m. on the road that resulted in the accident. 6 persons are said to have died on the spot, whilst 4 others died at the Obuasi Government Hospital. Those who sustained serious injuries have been transported to the Komfanochi Teaching Hospital for treatment. Here is Commander of the Motor Traffic and Transport Department at Obuasi narrating the incident.
29th of June 2020 at about 9:30 p.m. police received information that there had been an accident at a section of the road between Obuasi and Dunkwa. So police proceeded to the scene of accident immediately, and on reaching the scene of accident, it was detected that a Mercedes Sprinter Benz bus with registration number GT 3910-14 and a Ford bus with registration number GE 5813 had collided head-on, resulting in so many casualties. And I will say that at the scene of accident, 6 persons died, including the driver in charge of the Ford bus. And a lot of the passengers sustained varying degree of injuries. So they were rushed to both Obuasi Government Hospital and AGA Government Hospital for treatment. So far, 10 people have died because when those who sustained injuries and were rushed to the AGA Hospital, 4 of them died on arrival at the hospital, making the number of people who have died in yesterday's accident 10.
Well, if you're just tuning in, this is a story about a gory accident that happened on the Obuasi Road. We're told that 10 people have died. 4 of them believed to have died on the spot. 6 of them believed to have died on the spot, whilst the remaining 4 died later on. We're checking to find out what is the latest update on those who are currently in hospital and to get more details on their situation. As well. We do know that scores of them have had to be taken to the hospital, the Komfo Teaching Hospital, for health care. If you know or have any family who may have traveled within that period, on that road or that stretch of road within the period we're discussing, you want to check up on them. Well, as we wait on DSP, can you hear me? All right, we'll try and fix that. Well, commercial drivers in the secondary Takoradi metropolis of the Western region are also have been embarking on a sit-down strike to register their displeasure to government over what they describe as an unfair treatment meted out to them since they were asked to reduce the number of passengers. Well, they were asked to do so to observe the COVID-19 protocols, but the drivers were made to reduce the number of passengers that a vehicle takes. That decision, the drivers say, is having a toll on their sales. They're also saying that government has continuously increased fuel prices in the past 3 months, but they have been prevented from increasing their fares, and that situation is affecting their sales and livelihood. Some of them have been speaking to us.
That's why
All right, so those are some of the drivers in Takoradi who've been speaking to my colleague Natalia Kwanza. Ina joins me right now. Hi, Ina. Ina, I'm hoping that you hear me, and if you do, tell us if the situation there has changed.
Yes, Gipsy. So around 12 noon, the drivers went back to work. Before they had gone back to work, they had petitioned the Western Regional Coordinating Council. The regional minister was not there, but the deputy Western Regional Minister, Gipsy Junior Kusi, received their petition. And then she said what they are requesting for is not within the power of the Western Regional Coordinating Council, but within that of the president. So she would forward that to the president tomorrow. And so she had pleaded with them that they should go back to work. And then from tomorrow up to Wednesday, they would hear from him. She said that the petition they had brought is already on the table of the president. So she's optimistic that whatever they are requesting for, they would receive a positive answer from the president.
And did they, I mean, what sort of negotiations went on before they agreed to come? Once they submitted their petition, they decided that it was okay to resume? Is that what happened?
Well, before they even submitted their petition, they were saying that the sit-down strike was going to commence from morning to 12 noon. Yesterday, for instance, today was the whole of Secondary Takoradi and other parts of the Western region. But yesterday, for instance, in the case of Takwa, it was the whole day. So they said they had given them up to 12 noon. So that's why they had returned back to their work.
And for passengers, tell us, to what extent were they stressed out with this development? How did it affect them, and what complaints did they come up with?
Well, Gipsy, let's say those who were going to Accra, for instance, some of them left their houses at dawn, got to the Accra station, only to find out that the drivers were not working. There was no announcement made. For instance, when you go back to yesterday, for instance, in Tapa, from morning to evening, anyone who decided to leave Tapa to Takoradi and beyond could not make it. So later in the afternoon, those who were leaving from Takoradi to Tapa, they had to adjust their fare, which was 13 cedis to 15 cedis. And passengers had to comply, even though some of them felt that was the wrong move by the station authorities. The station authorities also felt that drivers said they wouldn't move unless there is an adjustment. That is what they want. So if people wanted to move, and yesterday was the reopening of junior high schools, and so some of these students were leaving Takoradi to Tafa, and there is a case of where senior high school students who got to their schools after 5 were not allowed. So when I spoke to the GPRTU branch manager at Tafa station yesterday, he said that was the reason why they increased their fare. And today, the whole region is embarking on the same thing. And so they are giving them 3 days. If they hear nothing, they say they would go back on a sit-down strike. Passengers have not taken this lightly at all. Some of them feel that these drivers are not the only people affected by COVID-19 and its associated laws. So they don't know why drivers in Sekondi Takoradi should think of going on strike. On the other hand, Gifty, drivers are also saying that they are alleging that when you go to Kumasi and other parts of the region, the drivers are taking 3 people. So why those in the western region?
And they were also upset about the way they said the police officers spoke to them. How has the police responded to this allegation as well?
Well, the police haven't spoken about this, but it was right in front of me that I saw that there was a banter between the police and then drivers at the Takoradi Harbour police station. At a point, the drivers were hooting at the police because they said the police were telling them that if they don't work, they would not be able to feed themselves and the family. And they said fair enough because already they have lost their jobs. Some of them have to park their cars because, for instance, drivers who move from Takoradi to Takoradi to Accra, who used to make, let's say, 500 cedis, are now losing 300 cedis on a trip. So if you calculate, let's say the person makes 5 trips a day and he's losing 300 each on the trip, that is huge loss to them and their car owners.
Interesting. And regarding the sit-down strike and the interaction that they had with the police, it looks as if social distancing was totally disregarded as well.
Yes, Gifty, social distancing was disregarded everywhere at all stations that we visited within the metropolis. They didn't care. They just wanted to vent out their frustration, tell the government what they really need. Because Gifty, they claim that spare parts prices are going high each day. And for instance, in Takoradi, we have Kokompe where they buy these spare parts. They claim that when they go to where they buy them, the sellers are also holding it. So any price they give, they have put in a specific price on it. If you are not able to buy, they tell you they don't care. So for them, the social distancing now is not anything to think about. All they want is either they get back to their normal passengers they take. Let's say taxi, for instance, takes 3 at the back and 1 in front, or they allow them to increase the fare to suit them.
Yeah, I perfectly understand that. So from 13 cities between Takwa and Takoradi, some of them are taking 15 cities. Is that correct?
No, Gift is 18 cities.
18 cities. So they're taking, help me understand again. I heard 13 and 15. So help me understand how the prices have changed.
So initially, before yesterday, they were taking 13 cities from Takoradi to Tafa, and then from Tafa back to Takoradi. But now they are taking 18 cities, so we have 5 cities addition to the price.
Okay. All right. I get you. So then they have 2 days. They've given the authorities 2 days to revert to them. Hopefully we'll see how that goes, and it goes well. But they've returned to work, which is a good thing, correct?
Sure.
Ina, thank you. Natalia Kwanza there with an update on the situation in Takoradi, where drivers who commute between Takoradi and Takwa are complaining about fares. They, first of all, don't want to take less than the 4 passengers. Taxi drivers don't want to take less than the 4 passengers that their vehicle can contain. And if they do have to reduce the number, they want the price to increase because they're complaining about the increase in fuel prices as well, even though they have to social distance in their vehicles. And they're giving authorities 2 days to get back to them as they return to work from their sit-down strike. Let's move on and take a look at the COVID numbers. Now, Ghana's COVID-19 cases have risen to 17,741. Now, that means that 390 new cases have been recorded since the last update. Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kuma Abuaje, also announced this morning that a total of 13,268 persons have recovered from the disease. Currently, there are 24 persons in critical and severe conditions, with 4 on ventilators.
We have recorded 390 new cases from 41 districts and 5 regions. What it means is that 11 regions did not record any case, and about 220 or so districts also did not report any new cases as of yesterday. Greater Accra recorded the highest of 217 cases, mainly from Lamtonine, Korle Klote, and Ayawaso Central. Ashanti recorded 140 new cases from 18 districts. The 3 remaining regions recorded less than 30 cases over the period. That's Eastern had 22 new cases, Volta 9, and Oti recorded 2 new cases. This is a breakdown of the Greater Accra one: La Kwanta 958, Korle Klote 44, Ayawaso Central 30, Tema 18, Greater Accra Metro 14, Ghana North 6, Pong Kantamansu 5, Wejaba 14, Ayawaso Central 13, La Dadikotopon 6, Krowo 2, Lejekuku 2, Okankwe 2, Adenta, Ashaman, and Ghana West reported 1 each. If you come to Eastern region, the 22 new cases came from Ayensuano 1, Ekuapim North 1, and Kwawu West, that's the Senko area, 17. Western region had no case. Upper West, no case. Volta had 9 from Ho, Pando, and Hohoi. That's 5 from Hohoi, 3 from Pando, and 1 from Ho. Of the 140 cases from Ashanti, Kumasi Metro recorded 50 of them. Oforukrum 6, Obuasi 9, Obuasi and Obuasi East 3, Asukwa 2, and so forth. There are just a few. Apart from Asante Akim, Sada recorded 10 new cases. OT recorded 2 from Kwanta South. This brought the total number to 390. What it means is that Western, Upper West, East, Northern, Northeast, West Bono, Savannah, Bono East Ahafo all didn't record any new case yesterday. This is showing that despite the numbers are coming, we are still having them in small classes, and so we need to really take some focused action in those communities to ensure that they are brought to some under control. The maps there show what I've described in the total. That gives you the total across. You have about Greater Accra recording about 9,858, Full Ashanti with 3,615 amount. So that's the global picture that we have, and we still have Upper with 40, Upper East with 270, among others. And if you look at the district, these are the districts that has ever recorded a case, but as of yesterday, only 41 of them reported cases.
Dr. Patrick Kuma Abuaje there. Well, the Ghana Health Service says it's also partnering with Electoral Commission to ensure the safety of Ghanaians at the polling centers following the commencement of the compilation of a new register.
We are currently also working with the EC as far as the registration is concerned. We have worked with them to ensure that the flow has been done in a way that reduces contamination. So that from where you start from, how scans are cleaned, all that we've done through that with them to ensure that we reduce the spread at that level significantly. The health workers are there first to support the IPC. How do we clean our scanners? What do you wear? How often should it be done? They are supporting them to do all that. We are also looking at temperature checks for all who are there so that they can link them to should anybody have a high temperature. We are taking advantage of the period, also provide a lot of information at the centers. Of all the centers, I believe that People 18 and above are all going to be there, and we've taken advantage next 6 weeks to provide a lot of education to people about COVID and other health issues. So that's what the health workers will be doing. We appeal. This morning on my way, I saw 3 queues before the registration had started. There were some that were doing proper social distancing. You can see the 1 meter apart, but there were parts that were also clustered. So before the event starts, people must respect the social distancing and keep themselves separated. And everybody must wear their masks, because the most important thing for what we are doing is to ensure that we have a reduction in spread, both with prevention and not only responding to the case. So mask wearing should be done. EC has sanitizers and Veronica buckets to ensure that cleaning is done. We are pleased that all must comply and ensure that this thing becomes smooth, and we reduce any effort to cause anything that will lead to increased infection because of the exercise.
Meanwhile, the Information Ministry has also been educating Ghanaians on identifying fake news about COVID. Caroline Anipa, Program Officer for Dubawa, Ghana, highlighted steps in identifying real and fake news.
How can we distinguish real news, real information from false information, in spite of all the barrage of fake news and misinformation we are seeing on social media? So I'm going to run you through a few tips that you can use. The very first thing I want to say is that when you receive information on your tablet, on your phones, on your computer, or wherever it is, do not immediately share, especially if it invokes in you strong emotions like fear, anger. Those are ploys that fake news creators use to get you to share their content. And once you share their content, it gains traction. Once they gain traction, they're able to earn money out of it. So do not share immediately. Just relax a little and ponder over the information you've just received. Also read beyond the headline or the lead of the story, the first line. They are what gets you attracted to a story in the first place. So for fake news creators, based on this, so they use sensational headlines, which are clickbait, to get you to read or share their content. So read beyond the headline. So recently we've seen headlines like Mahama arrested for defiling 3 girls. That's a sensational headline. And then also question the source of information. If it's a website that is sharing the information on social media, go to the About Us section or the Contact Us section to know more about it. Know the kind of content they produce. Are they credible content? Is this something you'd want to rely on? Or are they just a satirical website trying to create fun?
Certainly the need for us to distinguish between what's fake news and what's actually the real news. Some of you have been sending me messages on the stories we've done so far with the drivers going on strike or sit-down strike. I want to hear from you. If you did register or if you are planning to register, I want to hear from you. What has your experience been? Send us a WhatsApp on 054-010-9009. This is still The Pulse with me, Gifty and Doppia. I'm going to take a break. But this message says, because of COVID-19, taxi drivers have reduced the number of passengers. Before the COVID-19, they were taking 4, excluding the driver. Now with the COVID-19, they're taking 3, excluding the driver, and they take the old fare. So I don't understand the Takrade taxi drivers. Elvis Boateng sent that to us. Elvis, thank you for sending in that message. Let me take a break. When I return, we'll look at the stress, the mental stress that COVID-19 is putting on all of us. Let's have a discussion. Let's see what we can learn and how it can help us going forward as we continue in this pandemic. Just stay with us. You're welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Like I said, let's talk about the mental stress that COVID-19 is putting on us. Is it even mental stress? How do we even know if we are being mentally stressed because of COVID-19? Joining me on Zoom is Dr. Benedict Webon. He is a mental health expert and a senior lecturer at the Department of Social and Behavioral Sciences at the University of Ghana. Sir, thank you for your time this afternoon. Okay, unmuting for me, I believe.
I know. It happens to us all the time, isn't it?
I know.
Thank you very much. Yes.
It actually happened to me this morning when I joined the team on the AM show. So now I know it's a real challenge.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to take it from my personal perspective and from some of my colleagues or my friends who I've heard talk about this. So when it happened initially, there was the natural fear, panic about it, and then you progress to wait and see how it goes, to wait and see whether it's going to affect someone close to me or someone or me. You wait, it doesn't happen, because it's happening elsewhere, then you relax. You feel like, it's here, and then the next thing, it actually happens. I think for me, this is where I am. And I want to find out, is there a way for experts to actually explain this trend of mental, if you like, no growth, of mental development in this time?
Right. Thank you very much, Matilda, and thanks for having me on your program. I think you've just explained a very classical, outplay of how public health emergencies actually pan out and how they affect the populace. There is usually, there's even the first stage where people are, even in denial. They start, they're like, well, these are just rumors. So there's the phase of the rumors, and then there's a bit where, people begin to see that things are happening around them, and they begin to think that, well, this is real, because they're hearing the news, and it's also because social media does a lot of things these days. So it's a bit different these days. And then, so it gets to that phase, people begin to take a bit, being a bit more careful about what to do to avoid contracting this. But remember that there are still that good proportion of people who will still remain very adamant and thinking that this is really just an important story about what's going on. And we still have lots of that happening in Ghana now. But what happens is it then gets to a point where, we're dealing with it. But if it is one thing that you are not able to deal with almost immediately, and you have your coping strategies beginning to falter, you then begin to have, trying to come up with maladaptive coping strategies. Which are those ones? That is where the point at which you begin to go like, well, you know what, this is it. I don't really believe in this thing anymore, and this is all just a rumor. And just because people get fatigued with obvious, because it's an extended period and it's for public health emergency of this scale, like the COVID-19, you definitely have to put a lot of effort. You know what's going on around us. And so it gets to that point where people just find it very difficult to just keep going. And that is when but it's very dangerous, Matilda, because that's when you begin to lose sight and you take your foot off the pedal, like they say. But it is very, very natural. It's a natural evolution of how the whole thought processes and how we perceive of these pandemics as we go along.
Well, natural. Then it comes with its own health stresses, mental stresses that it leaves on us, and that's what we want to focus this discussion a lot more on. By the way, Matilda called you. Matilda is my producer. She called you. I'm gifty. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. But talking about the mental stress that this evolution comes with, what is mental stress? As in, how does it manifest? So how do you know that you are mentally stressed?
There are many ways, and again, it's interesting that your choice of words. You are talking about stress, and you're talking about mental. Well, they are related. I must say, definitely mental health, you would find stress under the umbrella of mental health. And usually we define mental health as that state in which you are in, complete emotional, psychological, and social well-being. And so those elements must come to play. The stress bit it's, if you like, what we encounter almost every day. It's the response. Sometimes we call it an internal conditions response to some external pressure or stimuli, and that's what we call the stress. And you could go on to obviously in terms of the severity and how it prolongs. You could go on to develop what we call a mental health condition, for instance, depression. So that is by way of just clarifying. Now, for COVID-19, I think it's obvious, and as you mentioned in the opening remarks, it is just the bit about the uncertainty about this external pressure, if you like, the external stimulus called COVID-19, and what does it do? Am I vulnerable? Could it affect loved ones? Could it affect me? That bit of thinking about it, and also probably even seeing what it does to people, and the images of what it does, or reading bibliography about what it is about, definitely can get you thinking and getting you panicked, and then anxiety probably trickles in, and if you're not able to handle that properly, you then can go on to probably clinical depression. But usually in these instances, as in most public health emergencies, what you usually have, the epidemiology of mental health conditions, you usually have more of the anxiety that predominates, and that's what people struggle with.
So clinical depression, you call it, and dealing with it, how can you deal with it?
Well, there are many ways of doing it. And I just wanted to take a step back. To be honest, I had a thought, because when you were talking about, the whole mental health COVID-19 thing. So this relationship, I've always been curious about, whether we know about the reverse relationship between COVID-19 and obviously its influence on mental health, and then obviously mental health's influence on COVID-19. It's an important thing that people need to be aware of. I think sometimes we get into this state thinking that it's just this association, this forward movement association, that COVID-19 triggers stress and probably mental health conditions. But it is important to be aware that mental health and the stress itself that people go through or experience can have a reverse, so what we call the cause and the consequences of so mental health as a cause of COVID-19, and also as a consequence of COVID-19. You can look at it in both ways. As a cause of COVID-19, you look at it from the angle where someone who has stress, and there's lots of research evidence that suggests how stress weakens one's immune system. And so when you are already stressed and compromised, and you probably have the symptom, the virus, probably asymptomatic, it's likely to then trigger a faster or quicken the process of you actually becoming a full-blown case. And then obviously the consequences, I think those ones are obvious, that's as we discussed. But it's important that we clarify that. So people need to know that you need to be able to take care of your mental health so that you can keep your immune system. So apart from the foods that, immune boosting foods that we're supposed to eat, that the president has been encouraging us to do, you really need to also engage in things that will help boost and keep your immune system up, because a compromised immune system is likely, which is that it's likely to lead to stress, and then obviously the stress can, in the same way, affect your disease, a kind of progression in terms of how quickly you progress along the line in terms of the virus. So that is very important. So in terms of what to do, I mean, there are many models, and there are many interventions that WHO has, and for us in the mental health field, global mental health, there are quite a lot of packages, what we call mental health and psychosocial support. So we try to look at it in some domains. So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing approach here. You have to understand the epidemiology, understand that there are different types of people in a given population, and begin to segregate that. So what we call kind of audience segmentation, and begin to look at that, the fact that we have children, you have adults, you have the vulnerable, people with disability, physical disabilities. And so for each of these domains or this category of people, you really want to do things a bit differently for them. And so we do have ways of, for children, what you need to do, especially in these times where there's limited movement and we spend most of our time with them at home or they're at home, how to keep engaging them with, work, with exercises, fun things like that, answer their questions, give them hacks when they do need hacks. My daughter these days, she tends to really, I tend to see her coming to me and wanting to get hacks. I'm just wondering, and I keep them reflecting that it could just be the pressure of them having to be stayed at home for all this while and missing her friends in school. And so I make time to, at least to reach out to her, have a conversation with her. And so these are some of the things you can do for at least that age group. And then obviously the adults, there are basic self-help things that we can do. Most of that has been discussed in previous conversations, but just to recount some of the things that you can really do is, one thing that you can do is to agree and accept that it is normal to once in a while be sad and feel a bit of worry and anxiety. And you need to come to terms with that, have insight, and that you are not alone in this. Once you do that, you are definitely going to be able to pull through much better than someone who is in denial. Okay. And so that's one way. Yes. Yes.
Right. So I just wanted to, because you mentioned children, I wanted to come in with children a bit about the children who are going through this stage at the moment. I mean, even adults are having a hard time. So for children who are having to live it as well, is there any scientific backing to know that this could affect their behavior or could affect their mental or development in any way?
Oh, there is definitely. It's actually both ways, to be honest. Obviously, as in any person, once you go through this extended period of stressful situations like we are currently experiencing, we are not in normal times. And your coping strategies are not very good. Obviously, you are likely to yield and to bend to some of these things. But the good thing about the evidence also suggests that children actually are very, very resilient. That's what we actually do know, and you probably would notice that children are very resilient and strong when it comes to some of these things. So we have to probably, take that as a positive. And then build on that. Obviously, the things I was recounting, give them that basic support, help them to stay away, from social media, especially this era of it's another pandemic of misinformation that is so much everywhere now, and that can create a lot of trouble and anxiety for them. So if we can do some of those things, capitalizing on their resilience, you're very likely to pull through this.
I want to wrap up with you, but I want you to say something that anybody who listened or watched this conversation you think should not forget going forward. What would that thing be?
What I would say is that we are in for a long haul, and that please don't, it's not over, and don't, it's okay to feel a bit fatigued. But please be aware that we definitely have a long way to go. And so pick yourself up again, know that you can do it. We just need to keep ourselves going with the protocols, and hopefully with that, in fact, we could even come out of this even as better people, because we would have learned so much skills that, whatever the next pandemic might not come to meet some of us, but if it does come up, you are probably going to be much better in a better position to face it. So yes, let's keep going and let's trust in the system that we will definitely get there, and let's put in all our own individual efforts to pull through. That's what I would say.
I sincerely do hope so, that we can trust the system and get through it successfully. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Dr. Benedict Webong is a mental health expert and a senior lecturer, Department of Social and Behavioral Sciences at the University of Ghana, joining us with his thoughts. Like you heard him, let's trust the system and believe that this too shall pass. It's been second day of having junior high school pupils back in school to prepare for BECA. Government has assured supply of PPEs to all schools in the country yesterday, and we had reports that some of these schools have yet to take delivery of their PPEs. This afternoon, we speak with the GES and the Conference of Heads of Basic Schools to find out what their assessment has been. But before that, take a look at this report from correspondent Anas Sabit in the Bono East region.
Junior high schools across the country have resumed after an unusual break as a result of the novel COVID-19 pandemic. We visited some schools in Techiman in the Bono East region to ascertain whether authorities have put in place measures capable of protecting both the pupils and the teaching staff from getting COVID-19 infections. At the Zongo MA Junior High School, headmaster of the school, Mr. E.K. Omari, disclosed to JoyNews that enough safety measures have been adopted to ensure safety of the pupils.
Last Sunday, we were called to receive the PPEs for all schools. And we came in this morning and we started sharing the PPEs for them. You can see this is mine. Each teacher receives 2 nose masks and the hand sanitizer.
The school has in place Veronica buckets for hand washing, and temperatures of students are being taken before being allowed into the classrooms.
Before they get to the class, when we come to the school, that is the first thing we have to do. We have sent some of the teachers who are doing this particular duty. So when we come in, we check and we write the temperature against your name before you get into the class.
Alasan Barkisu, a final year student, shares her excitement with JoyNews with regards to the reopening of schools.
As we can see here, there are the safety measures which our teachers are taking us through, and we thank the government for this opportunity. In fact, I am very happy when they say that the school is resumed, and we are all praying to God that it will help us go through all these things, then help us to write and pass in our BEC.
The situation is same at the Amiao MA Junior High School. Here, we met the students being taken through safety COVID-19 protocols. Mr. Fosun Sowa Edward is the headmaster here. He tells JoyNews that all 48 final year students are in school to begin academic work, and all COVID-19 protocols are strictly being adhered to.
All the students are in. For now, we are 48 in number. We have 30 boys, 18 girls, making 48. They are all here. And the teachers who are supposed to be, of course, the regular teachers are here in their numbers.
Mr. Edward also tells me that all PPEs have been received from the Ghana Education Service, and the teaching staff are poised to help the pupils pass their final exams.
All in all is set. And this time, Mr. Sabit, as you know, we are poised to learn quickly. We have nothing to hide at all. They are not having any fear at all. I think they are prepared enough to go and write the BEC.
For Abdul Jalilu Sani, a final year student here, with the measures put in place, there is no fear being back to the classroom.
School commenced today, and we are very happy with that, because all the restrictions the government gave, we are following it, and we've been given enough of the equipment to be used. We have the thermometer guns, sanitizers, face masks, and the other stuff. So we are very grateful being in school. So I don't think there should be any fear in me being in school, and I'm very happy to be here.
We then visited the Aswach Junior High School, which is a private school. Just like the public schools, they were also provided with Veronica buckets thermometer gun, face masks, hand sanitizers and liquid soaps. Mr. Misbah Osman is the headmaster here.
We were invited yesterday at Techiman Senior High, and that's where we received our items. The directives, we have a Veronica bucket, we've been given nose masks and a hand sanitizer and one gun thermometer. I think we've given each student 2 of the nose masks and a sanitizer each, as well as the teachers.
Reporting for Joy News, Anas Sabit, Techiman.
And our correspondents will be joining me with what they have with their checks on day 2. I'm going to take a very quick break, but let me just read for you some of the messages that are coming through. Apologies that yesterday I couldn't read your messages on the school reopening. Today, most of you are testing me about the drivers. So let me see if I can take some of them before we go on this break. This one says, I think the driver unions must take their time with government because there are so many issues to tackle by the government. I don't think a sit-down strike will solve the problem, but it will worsen it. But the time and patience will do so, as already the virus is a common enemy, not ourselves. Let's be cautious in all we do. Emmanuel Andres Ando send this from Takrade. Emmanuel, thank you for your message. I got this from Damien in East Legon. He says, I'm watching you guys and I haven't gone to register. You're talking about the registration, but my parents are in the process and my sister has done hers. Honestly, with all the back and forth about voters ID, they are still giving us laminated paper. I thought this EC would have given a better ID card. It's a waste of money. Damien sent that from East Legon. Damien, thank you for sending in a message in. Okay, so this message is from Wenchi. He said, why should the girl use, okay, you mean the lady who was talking about fake news, use Mahama for illustration? There was a news item she was referring to. That's the story. Ejumako Enyan Siam district teachers have not had their PPEs. Head teachers have been warned not to grant interviews to any media, and I don't know why. Hashtag God Save Teachers. Amadou Isaka send that message. Let me take a quick break. When I return, I'll be engaging the Dunkwa Methodist JHS head teacher who also is in charge of the Conference of Assisted Schools. We'll be right back. It's day 1 of the Electoral Commission's data capture for a new voter register. But across the country, many people gathered at the registration centers are without face masks. Many others are failing to observe the social distancing protocols. Let's get a sense of what transpired today on the ground. Earlier, my colleague Maxwell Agbaba filed this report from the Odududio constituency.
This is outside the main precincts of the registration center. So you can see people lined up, here in close proximity at this place, and we are told that they'll be made to wash their hands before they get inside. But because the registration itself delayed, that setup has not been done yet, and as you can see, some of the persons who are standing very close to each other are not wearing masks here. There's a man with a megaphone screaming and asking these people who have come here to register to ensure social distancing. But it looks like social distance here. Social distance. Yeah, so trying to advise those who have come here to register to ensure the social distancing, but that is not happening. Few of the people we've seen here are wearing masks. In fact, earlier there were many of them who were not wearing masks, but some security personnel were deployed here after the disagreement, and when they came, they told them that if they do not wear their mask, they are not going to allow them to do the registration. So many of them had to go to their homes to get their mask and bring them before joining the queue. But for that, they wouldn't have been allowed, to join the queue. Behind me are the registration materials ready to be deployed. I've been speaking to the commander of the Ministry this police station, Chief Superintendent Asebunzo, he was in that meeting trying to resolve the disagreement between the political parties. He says they are ready and alert to call any violence that may erupt here.
The discussion had to do with some confusion that arose as a result of the review of the registration centers by the Electoral Commission. I think it was a bit different from what had been gazetted, and so it created a bit of confusion. But then after the meeting, it has been resolved. All the stakeholders have really understood what has happened, and they've all given the green light for the registration to start. We have had enough deployment of personnel here. As you can see, there are others that you can't see, and we hope that that will be enough to contain any issue that may crop up. But we are hoping we have done a lot of education and sensitization, and we hope it will work. We are not expecting any trouble today, but if it does arise, we are ready to handle it.
I have also been speaking to the NPP constituency chairman, Sat Raymond Tete. He was also part of that meeting and has been talking to me about what caused the delay in the registration in this constituency.
This is a gazetted sentence scheduled for the registration. Yesterday, when my party representatives came to the DIPAC meeting, we realized that the Electoral Commission is using centers different from the gazetted ones. Yesterday, my people pushed at the DIPAC meeting that the gazetted one should be used, but I think it was not agreed to. So we petitioned the UC chairperson and all the stakeholders involved. And this morning, the UC officer called for a meeting, which the UC is there, the security agency were also there, and the various political parties within the constituency. And we have all agreed that if something has been gazetted, it has become law. So you can't do contrary to something that is law. So even if the UC is having a challenge, and it's not going to open all the 38 centers gazetted in the first phase, then it will select the 90 that it's going to do from the gazetted ones and go and start. So that is the conclusion that we came. So now they've agreed, and they've measured the 19 that they are going to do this morning from the gazetted one. And I think that is enough for us, because all that we wanted is that the gazetted ones should be used and not any other thing.
I've also been speaking to the PPP parliamentary candidate for this area. He's equally concerned.
The review one is not only about the district called Ashedu Keteke, but it's national. But we are saying that you cannot use something which is not gazetted, because we all know the electoral process, and we know where is qualified for registration should be taking place. And we have also gone ahead and educate our people. So going back within less than 24 hours to make them know this whole change, it will be something else. So let's stick to the
But what's causing the change? Why do you want to change?
Okay, the change is that there is a gazetted one. So why do you want to change?
What reason did they give you?
The reason they give us is that they don't have all the machines to all the 38 registration centers that have been stated within the gazetted version.
Let's head to the Volta region now, where failure to stick to social distancing rules has come up strongly. There was a struggle among voters to determine who registered first. Ivy Setsoji is our correspondent. She'll tell us about this struggle and about who gets to register first, which resulted in a total disregard for social distancing. Ivy.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, Ivy, tell us what you saw on your rounds today, especially about social distancing and this struggle that ensued.
Yes, so people complain they go there before 6 a.m. just to get registered before they go above their normal duties. And some other people came and wanted to take over or be the first to register. That issued the fight. It was really bad. the PC for Ketu Sajibat Gomashihara to come in. Even that.
Hi, Ivy. Can you hear me? Okay. Looks like some network instability there. Let's head to the northern region where Martina Bugri is standing by. Hi, Martina. Martina, do tell us what you found on your rounds today.
Yes, Gifty.
Go ahead.
Yes, I was able to go through some of the centers in the northern region, Tamale Metropolis to be precise, and I went to about 7 of them. I must say that generally it's been a smooth process, except some few polling registration centers which started a bit late, but generally it's been smooth. And that also depends on the individuals doing the registration. Some places are very fast, but some places are also very slow. I can cite the Folk Village as one of the places. They had a very slow start. As at 8 o'clock, just 2 people had gone through the process, and the people raised concern. Now, when you come to the protocols, I must say that most of the centers breach a lot of the health protocols. You go into the center somewhere in the queues without masks. They didn't wash their hands as they were supposed to do before they joined the queues. And in some polling registration centers, you go, there's a Veronica bucket and there's no water. And at some places you go, there's a Veronica bucket, there's no soap. And some had everything, but the people refused or just deliberately did not adhere to the washing of hands. One other thing that came up was that throughout these centers that I visited, there was no health official stationed there. Neither did we have any security officer.
Interesting details there. Did you get to interact with any of the EC officials? If you did they say anything to you about these? Martina, beg your pardon. Did you get to interact with the electoral officers about your observations? And I'm hoping you hear me on this. What did they say about those? Okay. I'm guessing that you can't hear me properly, Martina. But Martina is reporting from the northern region that people are just blatantly disregarding the Veronica buckets. There are places where you have Veronica buckets, but you have no soap. You have Veronica buckets, but no water. And places where there is a Veronica bucket, there's water, there is soap, people are just simply not budging. I was trying to find out if she spoke to any official and what they said, but it looks like network instability, as you can well expect, has happened to us. But let's see if we can come back to Martina later. In the meantime, though, President Akufo-Addo has been speaking about this exercise following concerns raised by the opposition NDC about deployment of troops to the Volta region constituency of Ketu South ahead of this exercise. The president says he has no interest in preventing any eligible Ghanaian from registering.
The election on 7th December must be a Ghanaian election, not a West African election, conducted with a register of Ghanaian voters. That is the only way the true will of the Ghanaian people can manifest. It is crucial that both the registration exercise and the electoral process itself be conducted in an atmosphere of peace and security, devoid of intimidation and violence. The Ghanaian people must go about the exercise of their civic duties in peace and in freedom. The security agencies have assured me that they have made adequate preparations for this and to guarantee the sanctity of the process. They have assured me of their determination to carry out their duties without fear or favor. Improper behavior by any citizen no matter their political color, will not be tolerated. And I'm encouraged by the recent reassurance by the Inspector General of Police that police have been instructed to be even-handed in their response to issues. That is the only way the rule of law can be upheld. The long-standing deployment of security personnel, especially the military, along our borders is another dimension of this process of guaranteeing the peace of the nation. Fellow Ghanaians, it is no secret that our neighbor to the north, Burkina Faso, has in recent times been at the receiving end of a number of terrorist attacks, as has another neighbor, Côte d'Ivoire. To shore up our borders against such attacks and to defend our nation's territorial integrity, the armed forces, at least since I came into office, have been very proactive in engaging in operations to secure our borders and foil any potential terror attacks on our soil. Operations such as Conquered Fist and Kwandungu have been going along for some time, since 21st February 2019, to meet this objective. Deployments of soldiers in areas along our borders have been regular, and residents living in border towns will bear testimony to this. Again, in the fight against COVID-19, I took the decision on Saturday, the 21st of March, to close all our borders by land, air, and sea. To ensure substantial compliance with this directive and to assist personnel of the Immigration Service, our eastern, western, and northern borders were shored up by some personnel from the military. This development, for example, during the period of the 3-week lockdown of Accra, Temakaswa, and Kumasi, led to the arrest of some 5,000 persons along our borders who had entered our country illegally. Indeed, the first 6 recorded cases of COVID-19 in the Volta region, for example, were those of West African nationals who entered the country illegally. In total, 207 soldiers have been deployed along the borders of the Upper East region. 110 soldiers in the northern region, 102 in the northeast region, 98 in the Volta region, 72 in the Oti region, 69 in the Upper West region, 64 in Bruno region, 21 in Savannah region, and 14 in the Western region. Let me state, without any form of equivocation, that these deployments are not in any way intended to prevent or prevent Ghanaians from registering to vote in December. They are there for their express purpose, which is to guard our borders. That is the limit of their remit, and they would not be permitted to stay beyond that remit. I'm fully aware, like the military commanders, of the sensitivity of their deployments at this position in our history. And I'm confident that that sensitivity will be fully respected. I have no interest in disenfranchising any eligible Ghanaian from registering in tomorrow's exercise.
That's President Akufo-Addo yesterday. We brought you that live right here. We're heading to the Bono East region, where my colleague Anas Sabita has been making some rounds to find out how the process is going so far. Anas is joining me on Zoom. Hi, Anas. Well, we'll be getting to Anas.
Hello,
fantastic. There you are, Anas. Anas, tell us, I hear you perfectly. Tell us what you found on your rounds. How is the process going?
For the Bono East region, I must say everything is on course. The exercise has been entirely smooth with the EC officials ensuring that social distancing protocols are being observed. At the start, when we visited some polling stations or some registration centers at the Chimansat constituency, that was the major problem with regards to social distance. Apart from that, there've been the provision of the Veronica buckets at all the polling centers or registration centers. And apart from that, we have health officials stationed at the registration centers where they've been taking their temperatures. They've been taking their temperatures before they are allowed to get to the registration center. So in the general, everything was on point at the Techiman South constituency, with the exception of social distancing protocol, which was a challenge for the people over there. But moving to the Techiman North constituency, I realized they were able to do the demarcation. The EC officials put in place markings on the grounds to take to ensure that the registrants do not get clustered at a point. They observe the social distancing protocols. I then moved to the Kintampo North and South constituency, where I also noticed that social distancing protocols were key amongst the things the EC people were checking. And almost all the polling stations I have visited have in place the carpets plus tissue papers, and there were health officials stationed at these centers to ensure that they pick the temperatures of people who get in to register. I'm yet to come across any violent scene with my tour in 5 of the 11 constituencies in the Bono East region.
The people that ANAS has been interacting with in the Bono East region.
The exercise has been very good so far. Our guys are mobilizing our people to go to the registration centers to register. And we are also doing key monitoring, because if you want to win an election, it starts today. The number of persons who get in the register will determine the kind of winning we will win in 2020 polls. So in fact, we are giving much attention to this registration exercise, because that is the exercise we do to get our people on the register. And from there, they go to vote to make our party come for the second time. So we are doing monitoring, effective monitoring. You can see big men from Accra has been joining us to do monitoring in Bono East. So far, so good in Bono East. Almost 3 or 4 constituencies now. And we haven't had any complaint about any breakdown or any delay in the process. All centers are effectively working, and the registrants are happy with the process, because whenever you go, you try to engage our polling agents, and they say the work is going on smoothly. So far, we haven't had any challenge as far as electoral commission is concerned. The machines are effective, and the officers too are registered.
ANAS Summit interacted with these people, the NPP executives in the region there. Tell you what, Peter Seno is reporting from the Boyman Senior High School. He says there was social distancing observed, and there was actually a nurse who was taking the temperature of registrants. But students who went to get into the electoral roll for the first time say the process delays, as they also need to get back to their books. So that's ANAS Summit. Peter Seno, I beg your pardon, reporting from the OT region. Albert Sori has also been doing some checks for us, and you know, the network stability has made it difficult for all of them to join in. So I'll give you what Albert's found. Albert's found that the registration has been smooth so far in Bolgatanga, but then there was issue about social distancing as well. People are unable to maintain the spacing required in their queues, etc. But look out for these stories in JoyNews Prime. We'll bring you more of that. There is also a lot more on myjoyonline.com. Right now, I'll tell you what the Ghana Bar Association is saying. What it is urging political actors to be responsible citizens ahead of election 2020. The association made this call at an event to mark 38 years since the gruesome murder of 3 judges. President of the association, Anthony Forson Jr., says the only way that Ghana can remain peaceful before, during and after the 2020 elections is for citizens to be tolerant. Joseph Akable reports.
Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana is doing this on behalf of the judiciary.
Their monuments stand meters away from Ghana's apex courts. Justices Poku Sarkodie, Quentin Addo, and Kojoe J. Ejapon. The Bar Association marked the day with a wreath-laying ceremony at the four courts of the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Kwesi Nyeboah was joined by the Attorney General, Gloria Kufu, and family of the late judges to mark the day.
The third officer on behalf of all the bereaved families.
The second part of the event was a church service at the Red Church with President Akufo-Addo in attendance.
As we go out there in our campaigns, let us avoid the politics of insult and deceit. Let us avoid the politics of personal attacks. Let us avoid all these things. That is when we would be calling for justice and righteousness to roll like a living stream.
As Stephen was being stoned to death, he called out, "Lord Jesus, please welcome me." He knelt down and shouted, "Lord, don't blame them for what they have done." Then he died. This is the word of the Lord.
President of the GBA seized the occasion to urge legal practitioners not to abandon the principles of truth and integrity.
As we celebrated our departed colleagues, it is imperative that we devote ourselves to the promotion and sustenance of peace and tolerance in our dear country. Let us perform our duties without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and pledge to uphold the tenets of the 1992 Constitution, especially tolerance towards divergent views and a rededication towards making our nation great and strong in oneness.
He also called for tolerance ahead of election 2020.
It is imperative to address the very avoidable tensions in the country as we approach the 2020 elections. We call upon all actors, especially in the political space, to conduct their activities with a view to ensuring smooth and peaceful elections. All actors must constantly remind themselves of their duty to be responsible citizens. Indeed, at this time when we find ourselves in the thick of a pandemic with really no vaccine in sight, more than ever we should be each other's keeper and ensure that the vulnerable in the society are helped and covered. Public servants ought to remember that they are supposed to serve the public, whose taxes are used to remunerate them. Their actions must engender utmost confidence in the citizenry, who reciprocally must act with responsibility and respect.
Joseph Akable filed that report. Now it is emerging that the Audit Service Board instigated the President's order for the Auditor General Daniel Domelevo to proceed on the 123 days of accumulated leave starting July 1, 2020. A statement from the Presidency explained that the decision is based on sections 21 and 31 of the Labour Act 2003 at 651, which applies to workers, including public office holders such as the Auditor General. The board chairman of the Audit Service, Professor Jiajiman, whose similar encounter under the late Professor Mills's administration was cited in this statement, told me that the board was left with no choice but to push for this decision. Well, James Aveje is Member of Parliament for Ketu North, who also doubles as Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. He's joining me on phone. You work closely with Mr. Domelevo, sir. How did this come to you?
Thank you very much for the call and good evening to your listeners. So they came to me as something that is not surprising, having seen what effort that are made by this government in order to thwart the work of Mr. Domelevo over the years. It should not be a surprise to anybody in Ghana that we asked to proceed on this. So it didn't come to me as a surprise at all, because I know this is one of the areas that they can think that this man can be relieved out of his post for somebody to act in his stead. So I'm not surprised that this happened.
Do you appreciate that accumulating leave days isn't necessarily healthy for any workplace and for any worker?
Every worker in Ghana is actually entitled to go on vacation. So I'm not sure that the president himself is even exempted. He has also worked for 3.5 years, going to 4 years. How many times did he himself also go on leave? How many working days of leave is he entitled to? Has he also exhausted all the leaves that he's entitled to? It's a matter of something that should be discussed at another day. Now, once the president has decided to use the Labor Act and also cite the example of the very chairman of the board who has recommended for Mr. Domelevo to be asked to proceed on leave, citing him as an example, one may be tempted to say, is it a payback time for Mr. Biajiman to pay back to Domelevo, who has no hand in what happened to him in the past? So, yes, if you are entitled to go on leave, you have to go on leave, and that is normal. The only thing that I'm expecting is that after the accumulated leave has been utilized, Mr. Domelevo will have to come back and resume his post.
Okay. You say that this is payback time. Do you think that's what this is? Is this payback time?
I put it in the question form.
You asked the question. I'm just throwing the question back to you whether this is what you feel is happening.
Yeah, because I am asking the question. I don't have the answers. That is why I'm asking the question.
Okay.
So turn it back to me. You might not get an answer from me, because I'm also in the same position like you, who do not have the answer to the question. That is why I'm throwing that question back. Is it a payback time? Somebody must answer, not me.
Fair enough. But it brings me to the issue of two wrongs not being right.
Yes.
So the letter states that this was advised, or the president was advised by the president, something that happened previously, Mr. Jojima, or Professor Jojima himself. And then you also talk about the president not himself taking leave for working over a while. Do you feel that sincerely this is the way that we should go with our politics, and to what extent does it damage our ability to really come together in social cohesion for the interest of the country?
Yes, I do not see that this is the way for us to go. The president says that he wants to fight corruption, but all his actions over the years prove wrong. The others, they prove otherwise. That if really you are the one who want to fight corruption, a number of corrupt allegations have been leveled against a number of your appointees. And at the end, you yourself, you tell the Ghanaians that, oh, the person did no wrong. It means that you have turned yourself into a clearinghouse, clearing all corrupt charges against your appointees.
But those were cases that were investigated. That's what they said, and
the committee who set up the committee of the investigation, the president. No independent person conducted those investigations. Those investigations were set up by the president. And the president come out and say that the president did no wrong. Now, the Auditor General is an independent person established under the Constitution, who must have a tenure, secure tenure of office, who should not be directed by anybody, any authority in the performance of his function. And that is exactly what Mr. Domelevo has been doing. So if an independent person is there to help you, the president, who want to fight corruption, you should rather be happy that there's an independent person who is helping me to achieve my objective, my aim of fighting corruption. But if you should go and say, go home, go and take accumulated leave, yes, fine, you should take the leave. But we expect the president that as soon as the leave is exhausted, this level comes back to continue his work, if really the president wants to fight the corruption.
Okay. You think the president has an issue with Mr. Domelevo?
I do not have any facts to prove, but sometimes the people say the actions speak louder than words. So if the president is asking this man to proceed on leave, then his action can speak louder than words. I do not say that the president has a personal beef with the Auditor General. But my issue is that if this is the man who is fighting corruption, the president should rather assist this man so that he can also help the president to fight corruption.
My final question to you, sir, is that for you to tell me your level of confidence in the audit service when it comes to the fight against corruption without somebody as Mr. Daniel Domolevo for the next 123 days that he's supposed to be on leave.
Well, I do not know the one who is taking over.
His deputy.
Now, so I'll not be able. He has a number of deputies, so.
Okay, I'll grab that name. I'll grab that name for you shortly. But generally, what are your?
I expect whoever is taking to act instead of the Mr. Domolevo to ensure that what is demanded of an Auditor General is done. There shouldn't be anything like working for somebody who has asked you to act so that you do not do the right thing and want to listen to that person so that even if there is corruption, if there is an infraction, if you have found something during the course of your audit which you need to report on to Parliament, because that is what the Constitution says, you cover it up. The person should not think of that. The person should ensure that the right thing is done. And inform Parliament of anything that he thinks that this is an issue that Parliament's attention must be drawn to for Parliament to take action. I urge that person to be professional in his duty. He should not go to any appointing authority who have asked him to act, and for that matter, listen to that person and cover up things that too he must report on.
I'm just trying to grab for you the name of the person that he's supposed to be, Mr. Domolevo is supposed to be handing over to. I think I just got it. Just give me a second. I'll look it up for you. So it says that he has been further directed to hand over all matters relating to his office now to Mr. Johnson Ekuamwa Asiedu, who is the Deputy Auditor General. Are you familiar with this person?
Well, because I've worked at the public accounts, I have worked with them, but I do not have that close working relationship with him. Okay. So I will not be able to know his level, but I believe strongly that somebody who has been a Deputy Auditor General, he should have the capacity intellectually and professionally to perform his duty. Okay. And as I said, he should be professional in whatever he's doing.
Mr. Aveji, thank you very much for your time. Honourable Member of Parliament, also the Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee there, he says that his expectation is that after the 123 days, Mr. Domolevo is allowed back in his position. Mr. Aveji, are you there? I think I just missed something I just want to put out to you. Looks like I've lost him, just to find out whether or not he thinks that is in doubt at all. His return after 123 days, to what extent does he think is in doubt at all? Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, throughout Africa today, commemorations are underway to mark a day of scientific renaissance. The day is being celebrated in remembrance of the continent's great contribution to the rise and development of modern science and technology. But this year's celebration is coming with a warning that Ghana could lose 30% of its 2019 food production due to the effect of COVID-19. And that's why this year's Day of Scientific Renaissance of Africa is keeping the focus on the application of science that addresses a potential catastrophe that's waiting to happen. Hopefully that doesn't happen. On the line with me right now is Professor Mary Obodai. She's Director of CSIR Food Research Institute. Prof, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Renaissance. Tell us about this Renaissance. I mean, I'm not very familiar with it. Help us understand, myself and the viewers.
Okay, thank you. The Day of Scientific Renaissance of Africa is celebrated every year on the 30th of June. And it's a day where scientists, the work they do is acknowledged or is brought to the fore of the public or to the world, as it were. Their contribution to the rise and development of modern science and technology. African Scientific Renaissance literally means reawakening of science.
Okay.
So it's for the public to know what we have been doing over the years or within the year, what has been happening in various scientific institutions. And for this year's celebration, the theme is rethinking food security and nutrition in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay.
And so that is the celebration theme for this year in Ghana.
And that's because we foresee a certain effect of this COVID pandemic on our food security. Tell us a bit about that. How scary is it?
As you are aware, this pandemic has brought into play a lot of issues in terms of farmers' lack of getting access to the markets, to seedlings, to transport due to the restricted movements and other issues that can be a problem to the general food security of the nation. So this is what the celebration is about, for us to let members know that there is hope. It's not all as dire as it looks, because as people are getting used to the new system or the new norm, a lot of other things are coming into play. So as we know, there's reduced availability of food and access to quality food. Our emphasis this year is on nutrition, the quality, the food that we have, its nutritive value. What are we taking in? What are the portion sizes? What are the nutrients that we need to have as we take in our food? So we are looking at a greater focus on products with high micronutrient content and immune supporting characteristics that can help boost our immune system in the wake of this COVID-19. So that's where the emphasis is. So we're also looking at food sovereignty, of self-reliance, and exploring diversification of crop production activities. And also they are scaling up underutilized crop species that are healthy and culturally accepted. So we are emphasizing a lot on underutilized indigenous crops like the ayoyo, the water yam, the different varieties of maize. We have different varieties of millets. We have different varieties of mushrooms, the yellow yam. These are all underutilized crops.
I see.
Which we want to, pardon?
Yeah, which we want to focus on. I just wanted to find out, you mentioned that there is hope. And I've just run out of time, but I want you to touch a bit more on where lies the hope. People have, we know the ongoing conversations about GMOs, etc. Is a part of where our hope lies. The immune boosters, how are we localizing our interventions for the farmers who produce these things? And like I said, I've run out of time, so if you can briefly touch on that for me, I'll be very grateful.
Our emphasis, like is on indigenous foods, our local foods, eating local meals, healthy foods, the local Ghanaian dishes. That's where our emphasis is. We are not talking about GMOs, and GMOs, they are to do with getting various characteristics in foods that enhance the growth of or are able to restrain or resist pests and droughts. Those are the varieties that will be promoted when it starts. But we haven't started that. But I'm saying that we have the indigenous foods that are available for consumption, the local foods, the local fresh foods that are available that we can stress on and eat the foods to help boost our immune system, enhance our immune system. So it's good to think of eating healthy and eating fresh foods.
Let me take an advice from you as a food researcher to, let's say, our agric ministry or our agric institutions or our farmers, our local farmers, or people who manage these local farmers on this day of the scientific renaissance of Africa. If you have one thing you don't want them to forget, what is it as we wrap up?
We should eat healthy, eat local. She eats fresh foods, and whatever is left should be preserved. For example, in our institute, we do a lot of preserved foods, in maintaining the integrity of the food. So we have instant fufus, we have the various cereal mix, we have the legumes that have been made into powders. All these are preserved if they are fresh. When they are fresh, then they are preserved. So you are sure that we have a more stable shelf life, longer shelf life. We have the micronutrients preserved in the foods. We should eat those, and we should also eat healthy. So that's one thing we would want to leave with the Ghanaian public, to eat healthy, eat local, and eat fresh.
Okay.
Thank you.
Prof, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. And I must say that you also represent a glimmer of hope for young women, young children, young girls who also want to get to this level. Professor Mary Obudai is director of CSIR Food Research Institute, joining us on Zoom. Eat healthy, preserve the food when it is fresh, and hopefully we'll all be fine. It's been great having you. Unfortunately, I'm unable to go through most of the rest of the messages I have right now. We'll do Let's Talk Showbiz. But before we do Let's Talk Showbiz, I want you to take a look at some pictures that we got from the registration process that's currently ongoing. My name is Gifty Ando Apia. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Take a look at these pictures from the registration, and Let's Talk Showbiz follows right after that.